So mental health difficulties is something that's increased dramatically in recent years, which is funny when you think about it, considering psychologists have also been upping their game. But what are you gonna do? Well, I'll tell you what you're gonna do. Hi. Bet you weren't expecting that cut. So my video editor decided to be a little mean, and it's not letting me put other stuff on the screen, so I'm just gonna put a nice little soothing photo of an igloo, hopefully with some snow in the background, if my editor lets me. So enjoy the audio. You're such a lazy You're gonna listen to this podcast I've done with my good old sister, who's currently pursuing a PhD in social dementia research and has a background in psychology. Her blog is called The Almost Psychologist, and you can find her on Twitter at The Almost Psych. Link will be in the description below. Yeah, so why don't you say hi to all the folks at home?
Hi, everyone.
So, say your friend is going through one of these difficulties, anxiety or depression, diagnosed or not. How would you act around him? How would you respond, sort of? Like, what do you not say? What are the red flags?
Well, the things that you definitely shouldn't do. I mean, it's the classic stuff. Saying things like, oh, get over it. It could be worse. I mean, you're fine. And you look fine. Or your life is still blessed. Don't say those things.
God loves you.
God loves you. I think one of the ones that I really hate is when people drag like religion into it, and God loves you, and if you believed in religion more, if you prayed more, this wouldn't be happening to you. If your friend is a religious person, it's very possible they've been turning to religion this whole time to help them. So you making them feel bad about their religion and their connection to their religion, it's actually just going to make things worse. Mental health is just like physical health. You can't like just pray a disease away. You would also actively try to cure it as well.
So what would you say instead of those things? Like, say you realize, okay, me telling this person that they're fine is not working, so what would you say instead?
I think the best thing you can do, it can be very difficult, is stop thinking about you. Now, I know that sounds pretty obvious, but when we talk to people, we have a tendency to already start thinking about how we're going to reply, right?
Yeah, like when people say, oh, if I were you.
If I
were in your shoes.
Yeah. So, and when it comes to awkward silences, we don't want to endure that awkwardness, so we want to fill in the space. That is not what this is about. When you want to talk to a friend about something they might be going through, you have to employ active listening. You are listening purely to what they're saying. This is not about how you're going to respond or contribute to the conversation. This is their story.
So is this title of the video just wrong then?
The way you respond is not so much in, having a big conversation, as much as it's showing that you are there to listen to them. When they're talking to you, just stay quiet. Hear what they have to say. If you have to talk back, don't make assumptions. If your friend is describing things that sound like depression, for example, that, I'm in bed all day and I can't seem to get up, I don't want to do anything anymore. Don't outright assume they have depression. Don't make assumptions about how they're feeling. If they've mentioned one bad thing, don't assume they're going through a whole other host of bad things. Use something that's called frame of reference. Use the information they've given you, nothing more, nothing less, and use that to respond back to them. In the same way, if what they're talking about, you might be feeling uncomfortable, like, I really don't know what to say to you right now, and you start worrying about how you're coming off. Stop. Just you being there, showing that, listen, just talk to me. I might not know what the right thing to say is, so just tell me what you want me to say, and I'm just going to be here for you. Try to avoid saying, I know how you feel. You don't know how they feel.
That's a classic.
Yeah. Say more like, I can see that this is upsetting you a lot. Tell me more about it, or anytime you want to talk about this.
So, say that they're, for instance, talking about this whole, I've been sleeping too much, or I've been not feeling my zest anymore, anything like that. How would you, and they ask for your opinion specifically, how would you respond to that? Because normally the response is the usual stereotypical examples that we've given. Because that's what works for us, right? But it doesn't work for them. So what do you say instead?
I think we've come to a point where we have enough mental health knowledge in the world now to know that you don't just have to sit back and think everything is going to be fine. Yeah, you might not know what they're going through, so you can't tell them full on, oh, this is what's right for me, this is what's right for you. But you can help them talk through options. You could be like, okay, you're feeling this bad. Have you thought about maybe going to your GP? Have you thought about, for university students, it's often, have you thought about maybe seeing the university counselor or an advice service? There's also the Samaritan's helpline here in the UK that's very helpful. It's helping you talk about some options, even if sometimes that option is, okay, you've talked to me. Have you thought about talking to a family member or other friend you're super close to?
I'd also like to quickly highlight the stigma that people have about approaching help. A lot of people tend to think it shows like weakness or something, but it's really just a time saver, honestly.
It is.
And a grief saver.
Yeah.
So just if you need help and someone's asking you, your friend's telling you, you should call this and this, stop feeling ashamed and all of that and just go for it.
Absolutely. I think seek out all the help you need. It doesn't make you weak. It just makes you proactive. And as a friend, you can also volunteer to help them through that. Do you want me to come to the doctor with you? Do you want me to sit with you with your family member or friend? Or just, do you want to talk about this every day until you feel a little bit better? Because I'm here for that. That is how you can be there for your friend, by doing, as opposed to just, sitting there and saying the cliches like, oh, it's going to be fine.
One thing I wanted to ask is that a lot of people they know that one person has had depression, so they're like, okay, all depression is the same, so if they've done this and it worked for them, it's gotta work for you, buddy. And that's just like, no, right?
No, not at all. I think things like anxiety, depression, it's different for every person because every person is so different. You might have one person who theirs might not be as bad, or they're coping with it in different ways, and you might ask your other friend, oh, why can't you do that, or maybe you should do this. No, you have to look at it from person to person and see what is working for that specific person. No person is the same. Try not to compare. No experience is good.
This even comes like for stuff outside of mental health.
Absolutely.
Just anything.
You wouldn't do, if someone is recovering from chemo faster than another, you're not going to go scream at your cancer friend, oh, why can't you be like them?
So obviously they go to get help. You've convinced them to get help. But just like with anything else, it takes time.
Absolutely.
Right?
I think, it's, one of two things can happen, which is that, they've gone to get help, which is absolutely wonderful, but it is a time-taking process. Don't expect immediate change, and learn to celebrate, the little things. They might set very small milestones for themselves. Like today, I am going to get out of bed and make myself breakfast and then go back to bed. And that's fine. Celebrate that milestone for them. If you don't push your own milestones on them. Like today we're gonna go out.
It may not seem like much to you, but it's not about you.
Yeah, it's absolutely imperative that you set goals and milestones depending on them, and you go according to their time. And yes, it can be very sad when maybe someone is doing really well, but then they go back to that bad place they were in, and it might feel like all that hard work has been undone. And sometimes people have a tendency to say, oh, you fixed yourself, why did you go back that way? You need to understand it can be like a wave. It pulls back, but then it crashes back in. And instead of being the person pushing them under the water, be the person who lifts them up.
So I'm gonna get a little serious here. We're gonna talk about suicide. A lot of people have this stigma when it comes to talking about suicide, that it could encourage suicide, or it'll bring the thoughts back in their head or something. What would you say to that?
I definitely don't agree. I know there's the stigma there that talking about suicide leads to suicide, and that's absolutely not true. In fact, talking about suicide can be what prevents suicide. So if your friend or family member is saying to you that they're having suicidal thoughts or suicidal ideation, of course you can talk about it, while also reinforcing that no, don't kill yourself. You are very much loved, and reinforcing the idea that suicide is not the answer, you can still be there to talk with them through it, because if they're having those suicidal thoughts, they're going to be there whether you talk to them or not. So would you rather they be with those thoughts alone?
I think the moral of the story here is that you don't want to be alone in anything you do. So don't be afraid to talk to people, right? And this goes for both sides, those with the mental health issues and those responding to people with
I
those
think
issues. Just
something that we've learned about mental health difficulties is it's very much rooted in how much we talk about it. And I know how you said that it's so interesting that we're seeing so many mental health difficulties, even though in this day and age psychologists are doing so much. But we also have to acknowledge the fact that we live in a society that is very, very slowly becoming very isolated.
yeah, people spend a lot of time like showing different parts of themselves on social media, but they don't actually have like real people to talk to.
Yeah, or
It's not gonna
often,
happen
seeing the best parts of people's lives on social media and maybe comparing that against your own life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think we had a pretty good discussion here. I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as we did. Once again, you can find my sister Nadine Mirza. No, I'm gonna say it right.
You
Nadine
never
Mirza.
said my name in the beginning.
Yeah. Nadine Mirza. You can find her at The Almost Psych on Twitter, and her blog is The Almost Psychologist. She also wrote an article about this very topic, differentiating between mental disorders and all of that. Yes, I called it disorders. Sue me.
And obviously, if you have any questions about this or suggestions, please put it in the comments. And
So, yeah, you guys have a nice day now, and remember, stop thinking about yourselves and talk more.